Hello everybody and welcome to the last video of 2020, otherwise known of What If Midoriya Had a Twin Sister, Part 5. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and all that jazz. Yeah, last video of the year. Hope you guys enjoy. It's pretty long, but it had some pretty epic things, I think. So, I hope you enjoy. The leaders of the League of Villains had retreated and the heroes had taken back the USJ. While the police arrived, the heroes went through the facility taking care of the small fries that remained, sending the students they had found to the entrance. "Hey Izuku, you alright?" Himoto asked as soon as she arrived at the entrance. She had spotted her brother and wanted to make sure he was alright. "Mostly fine," he answered, turning to her. His arm looked like it had seen better days, with the sleeve of the sports uniform being repurposed into an armrest. "Are you sure? Your arm seems pretty hurt," Himoto pointed out. "I just went all out against one of the villains. I also broke a finger in my other hand. Don't worry too much about it. One visit to the nurse's office and I'll be right as rain," Midori said, fighting through the pain to comfort his sister. "If you say so," Himoto said. "So what about you? Everything alright?" Izuku asked. "Yeah, just had to fend off a couple villains. Let me say, fighting Quirkless is a lot harder than it seems. You make it look easy," Himoto responded. "Oh, so you were in the downpour zone, I take it," Izuku deduced. "How do you know?" Himoto asked. "Pretty easy actually. You're useless in the rain," Midori said, laughing to himself slightly while his sister pouted, thinking if she should punch Izuku for that comment or not. The students caught the police up on the transpired events, and then those who needed medical attention headed to the nurse's office. They had all had a rough day, so while the teachers discussed how to proceed further, the students were sent home. It had been a very stressful situation, so, to give the students a chance to relax and recover, and also so the school could reevaluate their situation, all students at UA were given a day off. "Hey, where are you going?" Izuku asked, spotting Himoto getting ready to leave the house while going to grab a snack. "Oh, we have the day off, so I asked Yoi if she wanted to hang out after school. That's where I'm going," she answered. "Well, have fun. I might go for a run later, so don't worry if I'm not here when you get back," Izuku said. "Just make sure not to overtax yourself. You're still healing that arm," Himoto said while getting up. "I told you already, I am totally fine. Recovery Girl already healed it. The cast is just a precaution," Izuku shouted, annoyed at how many times his sister had mentioned all of this. "Well, see you," Himoto said, leaving the house. What's the matter?" Yoi asked. She had been hanging out with her friend for a while. First they grabbed some lunch, and now they were just taking a walk while finishing their ice cream. "Is it that obvious?" Himoto asked. She had had a lot on her mind since the USJ. Sure, she fought off some of the villains, but if it weren't for Tokoyami, she would have been toast. "I've known you for a long time. Sure, we haven't hung out as much recently, but I'd like to think I still know you pretty well. So, what's up?" "Is it a boy?" Yoi asked. "What? No! It's something else," Himoto said. They found a nearby bench and sat down so Himoto could tell her friend about everything that happened at the USJ. "Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw something about that on the news. Your goofy smile and gesture was a great cameo. I was relieved that you made it out fine. You're dependable, old Himoto, the one who always protects her friends when they need it. You'll be fine," Yoi tried to reassure. "That's not the problem," Himoto said, clenching at her legs with her hands. "I was useless. A little rain and a little restriction, I couldn't do anything. What if that happens again? Worse yet, what if I fight a villain with water powers and someone dies?" I'm sure you'll find a way to stop that from happening, right? You're trained to become a hero. After all, you're everyone's guardian angel, Yuri responded. But what happens if I can't live up to that? Himoto asked, tears starting to form and flow down her face. Izuku doesn't need me anymore. What purpose do I even have if not to help him out? Himoto, you're not defined by your brother, Yuri said, softly looking at her friend, trying to comfort her. You're a lot more than that. You've brought him up so many times that now he can do it by himself. More importantly, you've helped out so many other people and cheered us up when we were at our lowest. I'm sure that no matter what the situation, you'll find a way around it. After all, you are everyone's guardian angel. If you're the one who's down, I'm not sure what to do. You did fine, Himoto answered, wiping her tears from her face. If fighting the rain is a problem, then find a different direction to go in, Yuri suggested. Hey, how about we go to the arcade and play some games? Yeah, that sounds like fun, Himoto responded, the tears gone from her face and replaced by a cheerful smile. The next day, school was back in session and the students returned as if nothing had happened. Once they arrived, they started chatting about the events that had happened and being on the news. Once the clock struck 8:24, Ida took center stage and made his announcement. Attention! Homeroom class is about to begin. Everyone stop talking and take your seats. Hey Tsu, who do you think is going to teach class today? Ashido asked, turning around to ask Tsuyu, almost falling in the process. No idea. Mr. Aizawa is still in the hospital recovering from his injuries. Ribbit, Tsuyu answered, thinking about it. Anyone could be their substitute. The door then slid open and Aizawa walked in to teach the class, surprising many of them. Since he had sustained pretty heavy injuries during the USJ incident, he was still wearing a bunch of bandages, for crying out loud. He spent homeroom class explaining the prospects of the sports festival. Most students were very excited at the idea, but some expressed their concerns, which Aizawa quelled quickly, explaining that the school had prepared in case villains were to attack again. Classes resumed normally for the day, with the students going through all their regular classes. Hey, Uraraka, Izuku asked, wanting to get her attention. There was a question he'd been meaning to ask, one which popped back into his head after the recent discussion about the sports festival the students had just had. What's up? Uraraka responded, stopping in her path to pay her friend her full attention. What made you decide to come to UA? Izuku asked. What made you want to become a pro hero? Yeah, I'm actually curious about that myself, Himoto added, who had tagged along, wanting to get some FaceTime with Izuku's two friends. Oh, well, I wanted to be a hero because of the money, Uraraka answered, sparking a small conversation about that. Ha 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 ha! A laugh was heard, with All Might coming into view moments later saying, Found you! Young Midoriya! Wanna have lunch with me? Curious what this could be about, Izuku decided to tag along. While Izuku chatted with his hero, Himoto went with Ochako and Ida to eat lunch. Is there a particular reason you decided to tag along with us, Himoto? You usually spend your lunches with Asui and Ashido if I'm not mistaken, Ida stated, finding it odd that she'd be there. I'm probably going to get together with them in a bit, but I wanted to talk to you two, Himoto answered, trying to calm Ida's worry. What did you want to talk to us about? Uraraka questioned. Man, you two with the relentless questions, Himoto stated. I don't know. You two spent a lot of time with my brother. I'd like to get to know you a little bit. Ah, I see. So you want to see if we're suitable friends for your brother, Ida stated, punctuating it with an exaggerated movement. Oh, so like a father seeing if the boyfriend is worthy of his daughter, Uraraka tried to clarify to herself. Kinda, but not really to that extent. My brother's his own person, he can do whatever he wants, Himoto stated. I was just wondering what you think of Izuku. He's a great comrade who is very skilled and has the characteristics of a true hero, Ida stated as they now reached the lunch line. I'm sure it is for this reason his powerful quirk that All Might asked to speak with him. I do believe he'll make a fine hero once we graduate, especially with his quick thinking and strong quirk. I see, Himoto stated, taking the answer in. She looked at Uraraka and spotted her quietly looking at Ida, processing what he had just said. What about you, Uraraka? What do you think of him? She got a bit flustered at the question, but managed to answer, although she kept flailing her arms around while doing so. What I think of Deku? He's a great guy who's very driven. He's very strong and has a kind personality. No doubt he'll make a great hero. Okay then, Himoto answered, smirking to herself a bit. Just their reaction confirmed the suspicion she had. Well, thanks for that. Now I'll leave you two to your own devices. Time to find Tsuyu and Ashido. She left, going to the table that her and her friends would usually sit at. Most of the day went by rather normally until it was time to go home. The students of Class 1A got ready to leave but found their doorway blocked by a group of students from other classes. A student with purple hair who introduced himself as Shinso stepped out of the crowd to declare war on the class. He warned all of them that if they weren't careful, that he'd steal their spot in the hero course. More shenanigans ensued shortly after, with students from Class 1B showing up and Bago getting into a small argument with Himoto, but the students ended up going home shortly after. The sports festival wasn't far away, so for the next 2 weeks the students trained like there was no tomorrow, wanting to do as good as possible in the upcoming competition. Himoto spent a lot of time training with both Ashido and Tsuyu, wanting to get her close combat strategies figured out, since she already had a good handle on long and mid-range combat. In the meantime, Izuku trained full cal further, trying to push how much he could manage and develop some proper techniques. Himoto ended up developing a couple different ideas, like fire-enhanced punches, while Izuku made his movements a bit more fluid through practice. The two even fought a couple practice matches, wanting to test them out, but still keeping a couple aces in the hole for the actual competition. Time went by quickly and soon, the day of the UA Sports Festival arrived. You two please be careful and don't get hurt, the twins' concerned mother stated. We'll be fine, Izuku responded. Yeah, you'll see. I'll win this whole thing, no sweat, Himoto added, laughing slightly to herself. Don't think it'll be so easy, Izuku retorted, wanting to offer up some competition. I'll record the whole festival in HD, so both of you do your best, Inko said, although her words of encouragement fell on deaf ears as both siblings left the house bickering about who would win the festival. After a while of traveling where the twins started to mentally prepare for the trials ahead, they arrived at their school. Once there, they were guided to the changing rooms where they put on their gym uniforms and headed to the waiting room while the festival got ready to start. After a bit of waiting, which gave the students some time to try and calm their nerves, Ida came into the room, warning his classmates that the events were starting soon. This led Todoroki to approach Izuku. Izuku, he said, gaining his attention along with that of the rest of the class. Hey Todoroki, what's up? Izuku asked, a bit hesitant. From an objective standpoint, I think it's fairly clear I'm stronger than you, he stated, causing Midoriya to agree. He had been practicing full cowl a lot, but Todoroki's level of control is a lot more advanced. However, you do have your own techniques and even have All Might in your corner helping you out. I'm not here to pry about whatever is going on between you two, but know that I will beat you. The statement and serious expression on Todoroki's face caused a somber atmosphere to appear as yet another declaration of war was issued. Himoto started laughing, thinking the over-serious expression funny. Oh, you killed me, Todoroki. What's so funny? Izuku asked, taken aback by his sister's reaction. He himself was about to answer the boy in front of him, but was interrupted before he could. He really meant that! Of course he's going to try to beat you, Himoto said, the laughter slowly going down. We're all aiming for the top spots. He just thought that you were the only one? He shouldn't make the mistake of underestimating any of us. No, we're all going to try and beat you too. Shortly after, the students were called into the arena where Midnight was presented as the chief umpire. Now, for the introductory speech, Midnight said, for the student pledge we have Katsuki Bakugo. Calmly, Bakugo stepped out of the crowd and went up to the stage. He approached the mic and just said, I just want to say, I'm gonna win. The comment angered everyone and instantly painted a target on the back of Class 1A, and even made the audience look at them in a more negative light. Why did he have to go and do that? Izuku wondered. You really expected anything else from him? Himoto responded, jumping up and down a bit and stretching, wanting to get ready for the first trial. But this is different from his normal demeanor. This is Kachan pushing himself, Izuku stated, causing his sister to agree with him. They knew the bully pretty well. Regardless of the circumstances, the festival proceeded as planned, with Midnight announcing the first event. A wheel went through a bunch of different options, ending on the option Obstacle Race. Knowing what the game would be, it was now her job to explain the details, so that's what she did. The students assembled in front of the gate and waited for the race to start. The moment it did, all contestants ran forward, wanting to get a lead on the others. They all entered the gates, being squished in the process. Many students already recognized it as the first obstacle, a fact which Todoroki took advantage of, freezing most of his opponents in place at the start. Izuku and many of his classmates saw this coming and evaded the attack. They maneuvered around the frozen-in-place students and kept on going in the race. Himoto was trapped for a moment but easily freed herself. She didn't have a quirk suited for racing, so this was not where to overexert herself. She knew to give it a good shot and end in a good spot, but wouldn't do much more in the first event. Once he was out of the gate, Izuku activated full cal to 5% and started running. Unlike his sister, he wanted to do well in all the events. He had to assert himself. This was his chance, his moment to say, I am here. Todoroki quickly took the lead, with Mineta following behind, wanting to take him out of the race with one of his balls, but before he could execute his cunning strategy, he was swatted away by a 1-point robot that showed up out of nowhere. The robots showed themselves to the competitors, revealing themselves as the second obstacle. Todoroki quickly froze them over while out of balance, causing them to fall on top of his opponents while he widened his lead. Izuku saw the robot fall and had to jump back. He knew he didn't have the speed to run forward, so his only chance if he didn't want to get crushed was retreat. After the robot crashed, the students of UA still had to deal with the smaller ones. Izuku managed to disable and destroy a smaller robot, a convenient piece of armor loosening up. He quickly reattached the wires at the back of the armor into a makeshift strap. He kept on going, carrying the armor as if it were a shield. It could prove useful later on. The students kept on going, running into the next obstacle, which were the pits. Todoroki quickly breezed through it, getting past the obstacle while most other students only started with it. The only one remotely close to him was Bakugo, who was quickly clearing the third obstacle. Izuku started moving at a decent speed. There was no way to use his quirk to his advantage in this exercise, so he just moved on slowly. By the time he arrived at the final obstacle, there were already a couple people ahead of him. Both Todoroki and Bakugo, who had breezed by the last two obstacles, were competing for first place, no other competition in sight. Midoriya looked at his surroundings, thinking of an idea. He put a couple mines together, and while everyone carefully avoided them, trying to get to the finish line, he blew them all up, propelling himself forward in order to reach the first place. Seeing a third competitor become a prominent candidate for first place, Bakugo and Todoroki ignored their differences, advancing, trying to catch up to Izuku, who now had first place. This led Todoroki to even create a small path to facilitate the way for himself and those who'd come later. In the air, Izuku maneuvered his position. For a moment it even looked as if he was riding the piece of metal as if it were a surfboard. Once he started losing momentum, he activated full Cal and jumped, throwing the metal plating at the two opponents. They easily avoided it and went after Izuku, trying to take him down. Once he hit the ground, Izuku accelerated, keeping a good speed until reaching the finish line. Bakugo got close at one point, but Izuku managed to trip him up, which caused him to fall, giving Izuku an edge. Izuku emerged from the finish line as first, with Bakugo second, and Todoroki, whose quirk limited his mobility, at third place. After a while, even Himoto arrived, claiming the 15th spot. She even melted Todoroki's path just to make it a bit harder on the other contestants. After the race finished, the administration gathered the top 42 students and explained the details of the next event, that being the cavalry battle. The moment the students' points were revealed was the point that a huge target was painted on Izuku's back, one that would make it hard to recruit allies. Still, he had people who'd likely join him regardless. "Hey, Himoto, my beloved sister, you want to team up?" he said while approaching his sister. "Sorry, bro, but I said I beat you. I'm going to go for my own approach on this one that you won't be able to stop," Himoto responded, wanting to stand on her own 2 feet and try a different approach in this whole competition. This decision made Izuku doubt himself, as his rock was saying she didn't want to work with him. "I see. I'll still win this," he said, trying to still sound confident while re-examining his reality, failing at that. "Well, good luck," she said as she left, walking to approach Tsuyu. Her brother had friends. She knew he'd end up fine. What am I gonna do now?" Izuku wondered out loud, giving out a sigh of defeat. "Hey Deku, let's team up," Uraraka suggested, returning Izuku's worldview back to the norm. "Are you sure?" Izuku asked, unsure if it was a good idea for her to join him. Uraraka refuted his concerns, explaining why it was a good idea. They were then approached by Hatsume, who wanted to use Izuku's spotlight to her advantage. Needing as many people as possible and having a good use for Hatsume's inventions, she was accepted into the group. They approached Ida in order for him to be the last member, but he refused, joining Todoroki's team instead. He wanted to expand his horizons and get by without Izuku's help. Needing a 4th member, the group approached Tokoyami, who accepted their offer. The cavalry battle was a fierce one, with students going after one another for points. Strategies were implemented in order to gain more points. Some went on the offensive, like Todoroki, who froze over a bunch of his opponents, but others remained defensive. Izuku's team with Uraraka as the mount was a quite fast group, hopping and flying around the arena in order to keep their 10 million points. They decided this to be the best strategy and managed to maintain the lead for the whole game. There were a couple close calls, but thanks to both Izuku and Tokoyami, they ended up winning. Todoroki's team ended up in 2nd place, having stolen many headbands from opponents that they had frozen in place. Shinso's team secured 3rd, having stolen all of Monoma's headbands. Himoto's team managed to steal 2 headbands from Bakugo's, getting 4th place, with little time to spare, while Bakugo, left with only 1 headband, ended up in 5th place, since the 4th team only had 3 members, and they were 1 short for the final competition. Bakugo was allowed to move on. Once the event ended, the students were given an hour to go have lunch and enjoy themselves. As most walked to the cafeteria, Uraraka looked around trying to find her friend. "Where'd Deku go?" she wondered. "Now that you mention it, Himoto's missing too," Ashido stated, overhearing her classmate. It struck them as odd that both twins would suddenly disappear, but they gave it little thought as they wanted to go eat before the cafeteria got too full. "So we're here. Now what?" Izuku asked. "Yeah, what do you want to talk about, Todoroki?" Himoto asked. Todoroki didn't answer. Instead, he just coldly stared at Izuku. "I'm getting hungry, so can we get through this before the cafeteria gets too full?" Himoto said, trying to get the conversation started, or at least lighten the mood. There was a pretty grim and cold atmosphere around. "You can go if you want. It's really him I want to talk to." Todoroki said, still staring at Izuku. I'm not leaving until this is over, so you might as well get it over with, Himoto responded. Fine, I'll get right to the point then, Todoroki said, turning back to face Izuku. Izuku, your power. It reminds me a lot of All Might's. It's a lot weaker, but the sensation I got from it during the cavalry battle was the same. So tell me, are you All Might's secret love child or something? Hearing this, Himoto burst out laughing. You really think he's All Might's secret love child? Oh, you're killing me today, Todoroki. What, because I breathe and control fire in my endeavors, daughter? We're twins, so that wouldn't really work out, Izuku stated. He thought Todoroki's proclamation was weird, but he had found a connection, one which Himoto had quickly managed to erase. That's not a proper answer. It seems like you're trying to deflect or something, Todoroki responded, taking in the situation objectively. Dude, All Might just saw how amazing my brother is and decided to help him out a bit. This guy has a lot of potential, Himoto said while slapping Izuku on the back. She had given no false statements while still hiding her brother's secret. I see. So he's like your mentor, Todoroki said, reformulating the sister's words so he could better understand it. More or less, Izuku answered. My father is Endeavor. If you are connected to the number 1 as you claim, then I have even more reason to beat you, Todoroki said while starting to walk away. Wait, what are you getting at? Izuku asked, concerned for his classmate invading his mind. Todoroki stopped in his tracks and explained his situation in origin. So that's why you aren't using your fire? Izuku asked. Yeah. And now I will beat you without using my father's power, Todoroki said, trying to leave again. Sorry for wasting your time. Wait, Todoroki, Midoriya said, getting him to stop again. I've always had help, no matter what the situation. I've only come this far because other people helped me. I want to become like All Might, and for that, I need to become the strongest. It may be a lame motivation compared to yours, but I'm not going to lose. All the people that helped me, that's how I'll repay them. Let me return your declaration of war with my own. I'm going to beat you. They all then went to lunch. After lunch, the brackets for the final event were going to be decided, but Ojiro and Ibara spoke up, giving up their spot in the final. Ojiro thought it was unfair he was allowed to move on when he remembered nothing from the previous event. Ibara thought it was unholy to allow such a thing as well. Both of their unwillingness to move on inspired their third partner, Nirengeki Shoda, to forfeit as well. Needing to fill the brackets, everyone from Bakugo's team was allowed to move on. After picking lots to decide the matches, the fights ended up being Izuku against Shinso, Todoroki against Zero, Kaminari against Momo, Ida against Hatsume, Tokoyami against Himoto, Ashido against Mina, Kirishima against Shoji, and Bakugo against Uraraka. The recreational games were then held in order for those who didn't pass to still have fun, while also giving those who passed on to the next event time to prepare. During this time, Izuku was warned by Ojiro about his opponent's power. The time came for the first match of the first round to begin. Both fighters stepped into the arena, ready to give it their all. So you can just give up, Shinso said, putting Midoriya on edge. He had been warned about the boy's quirk and knew not to give in to such an obvious taunt. In a way, this is a test of how strong our spirits are. If you know what you want your future to hold for you, you can't worry about what other people think. President Mike announced the beginning of the match, but that didn't stop Shinso. That monkey was going on about his pride earlier, but I just think he's an idiot for throwing away his chance like that. Shinso continued, angering Midoriya. Don't you dare talk about him that way! Izuku shouted, rushing at Shinso, wanting to attack. He needed to defend his friend's honor. As he ran, the purple-haired boy grinned as Midoriya stopped in his tracks. Victory was now assured. "That's it," Shinso said. From his point of view, it was already over. "I win." Izuku was now under his control. It was normal to think such a thing. "So here we are. You're lucky to have been so blessed, Izuku Midoriya. Now turn around and walk out of bounds like a good little hero," Shinso ordered. Izuku turned around and started walking towards the end of the arena. While in the stands, Aizawa explained what was happening, Shinso gave a small monologue in the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, Izuku's surroundings disappeared. He was now in a barren wasteland. He looked at his own body, only to see most of it, excluding his eyes and hands, covered in mist. He looked around, spotting a beautiful woman beside him. "This won't do. There isn't enough time, and you still can't handle more than 9%. This won't do at all," a voice said, catching Izuku's attention. He turned to face the voice, spotting a man with white hair there. The man stretched his hand out, covering Izuku's face. For a moment, Izuku flinched, feeling a strange sensation on his face, as if someone was squeezing it. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the real world, just a step away from the exit of the arena. "Huh? Why did you stop?" Shinso asked, confused. "Go, take the last step, forfeit the match." Midoriya looked back, glaring at the boy. "What? Impossible! How did you do that? How did you break free?" he asked, wanting to get Izuku back under his control. Izuku almost answered, but put his hand to his mouth to stop himself. He activated full Cal and rushed at Shinso, pushing him out of bounds before the boy could do much against him. Izuku had won the match. The second match began shortly after. Angered by the conversation he had just had with his father, Todoroki unleashed the full scale of his ice power before Zero could do much against him. Zero ended up completely encased in ice, unable to move, which lost him the match and allowed Todoroki to move on. The third match began with Kaminari wanting to take his opponent out swiftly. He unleashed an indiscriminate shock, but Yaoyorozu saw it coming. She had prepared an insulated blanket before the match started and unleashed it as soon as it did, blocking the electricity. Once the attack stopped, she quickly and easily restrained her opponent, winning the match and passing to the next round. The fourth match was between Hatsume and Ida. Hatsume used this opportunity to promote all her inventions, using Ida as the test dummy. Once the exposition was over, she stepped out of bounds, allowing Ida to pass on. "The dreaded battle is upon us," Tokoyami said as both him and Himoto stepped into the arena ready for the fifth match. "And it's a battle I'll win," Himoto retorted, getting into a battle stance. "I wouldn't be so certain. I won't give up the match so easily," Tokoyami said, preparing for the battle himself. Present mic indicated the start to the match and Tokoyami launched Dark Shadow at Himoto, wanting to push her out of bounds quickly. In response, Himoto breathed out, unleashing a wall of fire which frightened Dark Shadow, causing him to stop. She parted the flames, jumping out and running towards Tokoyami while two streams of fire flew at him from two different directions. Tokoyami was forced to evade the attacks. Dark Shadow was being pacified by the light of the flames in front of him. Himoto used the situation she created to get in close. She was a much better combatant in close quarters than Tokoyami, which allowed her to pin her opponent quite quickly. "Shouldn't have told me your weakness," she said while maintaining a cage of fire around her opponent's quirk, Dark Shadow. "You are right, but it was necessary under the circumstances," Tokoyami responded. "I concede the battle." With Tokoyami's surrender, Himoto was pronounced the victor. The sixth match was between Tsuyu Asui and Mina Ashido. Once it started, Tsuyu tried to use her tongue in order to tug her opponent out of bounds, like Zero had tried in one of the previous rounds. She fared just as well as Mina burned her tongue using her acid. Tsuyu, feeling the pain, was now distracted, which gave Mina an advantage. Mina skated through the arena, using her mobility and speed to quickly disable Tsuyu with a couple well-placed attacks before she delivered the final blow in the form of an uppercut. The 7th match was a fierce battle between Mezo Shoji and Eijiro Kirishima. Both opponents brawled it out. They fought bravely. In the end, Kirishima's hardening gave him a leg up over Shoji, an advantage which gave him the victory. The final match of the round was a fierce battle between Ochako Uraraka and Katsuki Bakugo. The girl fought bravely against the odds, doing all she could to defeat her opponent. Sadly, his overwhelming firepower ended up beating her determination, so she ended up losing the fight. Both contestants stepped up to the arena ready to fight the first match of the second round. Many thoughts were racing through Izuku's mind, especially after the short chat he'd had with Endeavor before the match. "So, here we are," Shoto said, issuing his challenge. "And only one of us can win," Izuku responded. The two got ready to fight, and moments later, the battle began. The moment it did, Todoroki shot an ice attack at Izuku. Both opponents knew they had to disable each other quickly, and were predicting each other's moves. Izuku activated full counts of 5% and jumped out of the way just in time to evade the attack. He landed meters away, but the moment he did was forced to jump again as another ice attack was coming his way. His jump wasn't well rooted, so it ended up flimsy, with him landing incorrectly. Todoroki shot another attack, wanting to freeze Izuku. Izuku moved out of the way, but got his foot stuck in the attack. Todoroki let out a smirk. His opponent was slowed down, and this was the moment to take him down. He unleashed a bigger ice attack at Izuku. It was smaller than the one he had used against Zero, but still significant. Forced with no other alternative, as it was either counter or lose, Izuku focused one fall on one of his fingers, unleashing the full power of the quirk. The ice attack parted. The ice wall was broken and pieces of ice were flying at high speeds towards Todoroki. The wind pressure hit him, sending him flying back. He did not expect such a development. Lucky for him, Todoroki got close enough to the ground to create a wall that caught him. He was inches away from stepping out of bounds, but managed to stay in. The audience was surprised as the intense wind pressure hit them. What was that? He wondered out loud. He had never seen Izuku use such a strong attack. His whole deal was slightly enhancing his body. Ignoring the pain in his right finger, Izuku charged at Todoroki, maintaining full cal at 5%. Todoroki saw him coming and defended, shooting another ice attack at Izuku, one which he easily managed to dodge. Todoroki was slightly slower. I don't have enough data on him to predict his moves, but I do know what he's going for, and he's getting slower, Izuku thought to himself, analyzing his situation carefully. So you want to make this a battle of endurance? Todoroki asked, getting Izuku out of thought. I'm not going to let you. I'll end this quickly. He created an ice slope, running towards Izuku and jumping off. Todoroki aimed for Izuku, wanting to freeze him in place with a punch, but Izuku evaded, an ice wall coming at him after, which he managed to evade as well. You're getting slow, Todoroki, Izuku shouted as he managed to create some distance between himself and Todoroki. Todoroki shot another ice attack at Izuku, but he again evaded it. It was becoming easier and easier. It's not just you that's slowing down, it's your ice too, Izuku said. You know, it's easy to forget, but quirks are physical abilities. They have limits, and it seems you're reaching yours. Izuku went on the offensive, rushing at Todoroki. He managed to punch the boy, but Todoroki caught himself again before falling out of bounds. I'm here giving it my all. So are the rest of us. My sister, Bakugo, Uraraka. All of us are trying our hardest. We're giving it all in order to make our dreams a reality. You have no right to do any less, Izuku shouted. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to use my fire. What, did my father bribe you or something? Todoroki asked, running at Izuku and trying to freeze him again. His moves are getting predictable, Izuku thought. A combination of seeing the repeated moves and Todoroki slowing down allowed him to predict his attack, which allowed Izuku to land a hit, throwing Todoroki against an ice wall he had previously created. No, Izuku answered. "I'm just giving it my all and trying to be number one. If you want to reject your father, that's fine. But don't expect me to let you become number one by half-assing this in every other battle. I'll show my father. I'll show my father without using my quirk," Todoroki shouted, unleashing another huge attack at Izuku. There was no other way out of it. Izuku charged up one for all in his middle finger and unleashed the attack, breaking the wall. The wind pressure came rushing into Todoroki. He reacted slowly while memories flooded into his head. Still, he managed to stay inside the arena thanks to an ice wall he created again. Flinching from the pain, he regained his composure and shouted, "Yours! It's your quirk, not his! You're the one who decides what you want to become." More and more memories entered Todoroki's mind. Unconsciously, he let out a big smile while he unleashed his flames, which balanced out the temperature in his body. Izuku smiled, a bit frightened and not sure what he should do. "You're helping your opponent. You fool. Even though you want to win this battle. I wanted to. I'll be a hero," Todoroki said, causing the smile on Izuku's face to widen. Todoroki shot a wall of flames at Izuku, followed by one of ice. Izuku tried to evade. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't be able to do it, but the adrenaline flowing through him and the excitement of the battle allowed Izuku to leave his inhibitions behind. He increased the flow of one for all to 9% without realizing it and jumped back, evading both attacks. Even if the battle kept on, Shoto would surely end up losing if it was all about endurance. "You're faster now. So were you holding back?" Shoto asked. "Not in the slightest," Izuku said, jumping forward. He was now going at 9%, rushing at Todoroki, ready to strike. Shoto, however, created a wall of flames which caused Izuku to step back. Both opponents were on the ropes. They were both unsure how much longer they could last under the conditions. Izuku had already broken 2 fingers in order to defend, and his opponent was back to fighting form. Todoroki was nearing his limits, and his opponent's speed had suddenly increased quite significantly. It almost doubled. Both sides rushed at each other with the strongest moves they had. Todoroki unleashed the flash-freezing heat wave, and Izuku 100% Detroit Smash. Izuku's attack created a huge impact in the air around him, but it was Todoroki's that won out, as the explosion created by the expansion of the air pushed both sides back. Only Todoroki managed to stay in the arena thanks to his ice. The match ended, both opponents wiped out, but only Todoroki was left in the ring, so he passed on. The second match of the second round was a quick one. Ida quickly rushed at Yaoyorozu, wanting to disable her. Yaomomo created a shield on his staff to try to fight Ida off. She managed to defend for a bit. Ida persisted. He bashed the shield repeatedly, managing to get her to drop it. Once that was achieved, having no other option, Ida used his Reciprocal Burst, accelerating quickly enough to push his opponent out of bounds before she could even react. The third match of the quarterfinal took longer than expected. Himoto was keeping her distance, trying to shoot from afar and jumping back. Ashido would win the fight if she got close, so Himoto was avoiding that scenario from playing out. Ashido was, however, evading all of Himoto's long-range attacks. "Time for an unexpected surprise," Himoto thought to herself as she abandoned distance, instead rushing at her opponent. Ashido was at first slightly surprised but met the challenge head-on, preparing to fling acid at Himoto. Himoto held her breath and before getting too close, unleashed a wall of flames at Ashido. She made it as hot as possible. The acid that Ashido shot out evaporated and Himoto used the opportunity that she was close to grab onto her opponent and throw her out of bounds. Restraining her would be impossible because of the acid, so that's all she could do. The throw wasn't strong enough and Ashido still remained in the arena. "It won't be that easy," she said, smiling to herself. "I didn't expect it to be," Himoto responded. She put her hands together and breathed a bit of fire, expanding it to make gloves made of fire. She unleashed a barrage of attacks, both long-ranged and short-ranged, using these fire gloves, which eventually drove Ashido out of bounds. This was accomplished by limiting her movements to a specific area and enclosing the area down little by little. Himoto managed to secure victory. The final match of the round was between Bakugo and Kirishima. Bakugo, having the range, used it to his advantage, barraging Kirishima with attacks until his quirk gave out, at which point he pinned him down, winning the match and passing to the next round. The first match of the third round went by quickly. Todoroki copied Himoto's strategy. He created a couple ice walls to restrain Ida's movements and then froze him in place completely. He quickly and efficiently managed to win the match and pass on to the next round. The second match of the semifinals was between Himoto Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. "Time for you to die, you damn Seraphim," Bakugo said, wanting to get a reaction. "You're going down." "Oh please, don't think it'll be that easy," Himoto retorted. She knew what she had to do. Present mic indicated the start of the match and both opponents rushed at one another. Bakugo launched a small explosion at Himoto. She maintained the flame from the explosion alive and shot it back at Bakugo. Bakugo moved swiftly, reading the attack. Bakugo approached Himoto ready to attack again, having explosions in both of his hands at the ready, but Himoto created a wall of fire in his way, blocking him. Bakugo had seen her use the attack against two different opponents, so he took a step back. He knew how problematic the girl could be. Taking her down quickly was going to be a must. Before Himoto could do much else, Bakugo launched a huge explosion at her, which passed through the wall of flames. She, however, managed to block it, using her pyrokinesis to dissipate the flames. She rushed at Bakugo again, breathing out fire and leading it towards her opponent, trying to take him down. Both opponents were focused on the battle, not uttering a word to one another. Seeing the fire come at him, Bakugo unleashed a couple explosions, allowing the shockwaves from them to redirect the flames, but Himoto still used her quirk to direct it towards him further. The attack hit, but it was weakened. Bakugo was sent back slightly. He prepared another big explosion and fired at Himoto. She blocked it again. Maintaining such a big flame was hard, so she dissipated into the air as quickly as possible. Still, her head was starting to hurt. Bakugo knew there was a limit to how much she could do, so he drew the fight out a bit, launching explosions at the girl for her to block. He ended up overwhelming her to the point she couldn't properly focus on the match. Her headache grew and grew as she tried to fight back against Bakugo. These conditions weren't ideal for her, so she ended up getting pinned down by Bakugo, who used the downsides of her quirk against the girl. The final battle started quickly after, with Todoroki unleashing a giant ice attack against Bakugo. Bakugo used his explosions to carve a little hole inside the glacier that was thrown at him. It took him a moment, but with the heat of his explosions, he managed to tunnel out of the ice. He burst out of it, grabbing onto Todoroki and trying to fling him out of the stadium. Todoroki, however, was a tricky opponent. No one had managed to throw him out of bounds. Even Izuku failed countless times. He created an ice slide that shot him back into the arena. He activated his fire size in order to balance himself out. Bakugo, thinking that his opponent was about to go all out, jumped into the air, preparing his Pulitzer impact. As the attack approached Todoroki, Todoroki prepared to counterattack. But as the attack came closer, doubt settled into his mind. Doubt which made Todoroki stop using his fire. With one quick decision, Todoroki had basically forfeit the match. Bakugo's attack made impact with Todoroki, throwing him out of bounds. Todoroki crashed against the wall, with the force of the impact knocking him unconscious. Bakugo was declared the winner, but he couldn't accept it. He had already basically lost one event. He hadn't even secured first place once, and now he had won because his opponent just gave up. He walked towards his unconscious opponent and lifted him up, demanding a rematch, an action which caused Midnight to use her quirk to take Bakugo out. A bit after, the closing ceremonies were held, with All Might even showing up to give the students their medals. Ida sadly couldn't attend due to his family emergency, but otherwise it went off as planned. The students were given their medals and even a couple words of encouragement from the #1 hero himself. The festival over, everyone returned home. And that's the end of the video. About 3 hours of recording now? I think I lost track of time. I just know it's been like 6 hours in total recording 2 videos today. Yeah! Last video of 2020 for you, from your perspective. From my perspective, no. I'm likely going to record more. It's only the 12th. Yes, only the 12th for me. So decisions. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little conversation that Himoto had with her friend Yoi, which literally means good in Japanese. I really should have named her better. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope the fights were good. It was a very long script. I think it was pretty cool, to be honest. I think it's pretty fun. The fights were kind of based on canon a bit because I still wanted Todoroki to have his progression while also giving Midoriya a bit. For example, here he accelerates from just using 5% to using 9%, which is even a bit better than in canon because in canon he just goes up to 8. So now he's using more power. Yes. Now the next parts are where a bit more differences start coming into play compared to canon, and yeah. In this part, I had Himoto against Tokoyami, because it would be an easy win. Then against one of her friends, to add a bit of emotional stakes. And then against Bakugo. She loses because one of my friends, I talked to one of my friends actually, he said, well, Bakugo would win because explosions aren't just fire, they're also shockwaves. And I'm like, yeah. The idea was he overwhelms her, but the shockwaves would also hurt. So Bakugo objectively in this setting will win, but Himoto can also use other aspects to her advantage. Using her suit, using her suit and being open in an environment, she could win against Bakugo. And probably would. Like she's good at fighting too. Well, yeah. I don't want to drag this video out too long since the video itself is already like, what, 50 minutes? 49, 48? So I'm just going to say this. Please like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, although I just said that. Enjoy your last days in 2020. Hope 2021 is better. Know that this series is gonna end here for the time being. I do have plans for it to return. I have the whole schedule done. Like already when I started posting the reboots, I already had most of the schedules done. Like I was, okay, I'm gonna do this here, this here, this here. It slowed down a bit because I had to focus on school and stuff, and I'm likely still gonna have to do that. But starting 2021, we're gonna have 2 videos a week. Again, actually starting this week. One's going to be Shield Hero themed, one's going to be MHA themed. The next MHA series, which I'm trying this new experiment where I post all the batch at once, is going to be Superboy, because in order to get to a certain original series I want to get to, I have to reach part 10 of Superboy, which will lead into that, which will lead into further stuff. So please bear with me and enjoy what's to come. Until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Have an absolutely fantastic end of the year. And yeah, bye!